Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or good morning, or good evening, or good night, depending on when you're listening to this. Uh, Welcome to another episode of Min Buns and Jesus, the show where we talk a lot about Jesus, and we have yet to do an episode about man buns, and that feels like a mistake.
I I don't know that there's enough material to do an episode about man buns.
Josh,
I do
not
not
with
have
that
enough to
attitude.
say about man buns to do an entire episode.
Not with that attitude.
Well, that's
Anyway,
my attitude. So
we are your hosts. I'm Pastor Ben Olschlager here in the great rainy state of Michigan today. With me again, as always, Pastor Josh Laborious of Edgewater Lutheran Church in Eastvale, California.
where it's not raining because
It's
it's
not
a
raining.
desert.
Yeah, he's lucky just to have water.
I
More
am
true than
lucky.
it.
I'm blessed.
Yeah,
Uh, Better to be lucky than good. Am I right?
something like that. I picture you like out there in California, and occasionally when you need to have a baptism, you have to go like the eunuch and Philip and oh,
I'm
here's some water. We found some. Now I can baptize your baby.
It sounds like the drought has been greatly overhyped. My taps, I don't know if we're currently in a drought because this last winter we got like a month of rain, which was really abnormal. Like it was actually really rough because the mountain communities got a month of snow instead, which means they were all inaccessible for a long period of like longer than they were prepared to be inaccessible. So in any case, we're not talking about any of those things today. We're talking more about Proverbs. We're in the section of Proverbs where it's really just a list of like helpful tips and tricks, life hacks as they were, but actually good ones, you can not 5 minute crafts life hacks, real life hacks.
Not the stuff as you're scrolling through Facebook or whatever that every time you see one you have to mute another page.
Yeah. Some of those videos that'll come up of like people like you can use this as I think like recently I it was a tool for making something round. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure a lathe is cheaper than all the materials you put into trying to make an off-brand lathe. For anyone who doesn't know what a lathe is, you put a piece of wood on it and it spins really fast and you hold a chisel up to it and it makes it like it cuts it clean. Um, I have one in my closet. I have never used it. It was a gift from my brother. I shouldn't say it was a gift. He got a new one, so he needed to get rid of his old one, so he didn't have two lathes. So now I have a lathe. Hi, Ian, by the way. Um, he'll call me and he'll make comments about the podcast, and I'm like, I don't remember us having that conversation, but I'm glad I'm glad it helps. So we are in Proverbs 11. This is Pro Tips 3, and we may as well just get into it. The first one is oh, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, Ben. I think we should set a ground rule here. Um, that any of them say that any of the proverbs from this point that say um, to be a good person is beneficial to you and to be a bad person is bad for you. I think we can just kind of pass those over unless they say it in a very interesting way. Can we agree on that? Because I feel like we have covered that several times and we can cover it once more here. It is to your benefit to not be a bad person.
Yes, as long as we go by UN Security Council rules where we both have a full veto. So if one
Fair
of us
enough.
thinks that's the case and the other one says, "No, I think there's something more interesting here," then we still need to stop on it.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with that.
Okay.
You said UN Security Council, and the first thing that came to mind for me was war crimes. And I'm like, I think our standard for being a good
No,
person
no, no.
is a
If we
little
were
bit higher than not committing war crimes.
Yeah, if we were Now, if I was talking war crimes, we'd be talking about the International Criminal Court, which has no power, as evidenced by the fact that they found Putin guilty of war crimes and nothing has happened to Putin.
Yeah, well, for something to happen to Putin, I feel like you would have to invade Russia, which
Not
is
with that attitude.
okay then. Uh, Proverbs 11, verse 1 says this. It says, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight."
So we're getting old timey here with our business practices. This is back in the day when you still bought grain and anything
Everything
really.
else.
Yeah, anything that you bought by weight, you bought with scales. And all that's really being said here is don't cheat people. Like, if you are a Christian and a business owner, don't be a cheat. Or even if you're a Christian and employed in the business world, don't be a cheat. And if you are a Christian in a business that is doing shady things, either make corrections if you can or find another job.
Yeah. I think this can also, and I don't know if this was Solomon's intention, but I still think it's a faithful reading of the verse. I think this applies to consumers as well,
Mm.
right? If you find something that's clearly an error, uh, like there's $1,000 TV that somehow the price tag is missing a zero, so it's only $100. Maybe the better thing to do is to tell them, hey, you have a wrong price tag, instead of insisting that they honor the published price. And I know that sucks because a lot of times, like, it's like, oh yes, I found a deal. But in instances like that, it's like you know it's not a deal. You know someone made that mistake and you're capitalizing on it. Uh, Interestingly enough, we still buy a lot of our groceries by weight because we go to a store that does a lot of bulk sales, which is cool. But all those scales are like built into the register, and I'm fairly certain they're standardized and checked fairly regularly by like state regulators. So, and gasoline, for anyone who's like, if you pay attention to the little like sticky tabs on gas pumps, uh, it's not a scale in the, like, it's not weighing it, it's checking volume, I believe. Uh, but those are checked regularly by state regulators to make sure they're fair. But yeah, I think it applies to consumers as well. Don't just be fair. Just like, yeah. Anything else on that one? Ben's answering an email in the middle of a podcast. It's more important than us guys and girls.
It wasn't an email, it was a text, but it was important. I don't think I really have anything to add on that. I do appreciate your addendum of consumer there. Like, don't take advantage of the businesses that are just trying to make a living. And if you are making a living, don't take advantage of those under you.
As a, like, from the consumer's perspective, a lot of times, like, if you go to a business and say they accidentally gave you too much of something, or and you go to them and you point out the error, a lot of times they'll say, you keep it, we're going to correct it going forward, thanks for the heads up, and as a thank you, like, you'll get the discount, or the, especially like if it's a restaurant and you're like, hey, you gave me too much of this, they can't take it back because they can't sell it once they've handed it to you. But if there's a mistake, you're helping someone out, especially like if you imagine all of the like at fast food, a lot of the people who work there are like teenagers and this is their first job. Like, take it easy, and don't make them suffer for their mistakes as much as you are able to help avoid that. In any case, 11 verse 2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, and with the humble is wisdom. And I suspect that an older translation of this is pride comes before the fall, or some variation of that.
Let's see what King James has to say here.
That would be the go-to old translation. I had a conversation about this the other day.
Oh,
no?
When pride cometh, then cometh shame.
Ah. I was having a conversation at a men's Bible study the other night, and I was pointedly, I think I made the comment because we were talking about fantasy football, and I said, I'm not going to talk smack until after I've beaten you. And someone said, I thought that was the whole point of fantasy football. And my comment to them was, I have learned my lesson. You do not ever talk smack unless you know for 100% certain that it is going to go, like whatever it is going to go in your favor. Because if you talk smack, and if you've ever done this, you know this, if you talk smack and then you lose big, oh, your friends will brutally make fun of you until something else embarrassing happens to someone. Especially if you've played fantasy sports and you're talking all this smack, because it gets on people's nerves. So when you fall, they make sure you know that you fell.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an art to it, but
an art to what? Bragging or making?
No, smack talk.
Oh yes, of course. It involves lots of your mom jokes.
If you are under the age of, I don't know, 10, don't listen to anything that we're saying.
I definitely thought you were going to say that is what smack talk involves if you're under the age of 10. But no, we're trying to protect the children's.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think you're spot on though. Like, our pride gets in the way of intelligence. It's easy to think you know everything about a situation and you really don't. It's easy to think about your own strengths, your own skills, your own ability to handle something. And whenever you step into a new situation, a new problem, there's always something you don't expect. And so going into just about everything with a sense of humility and a sense of like, well, there could be something here that comes up that I just don't know about yet. So I need to leave myself some flexibility. That's always a plus.
Yeah, to look at it kind of considering worst case scenario, I can't imagine a situation where approaching things with humility is going to like come back and really negatively affect you. I mean, maybe if you're overly humble in like a job interview, but if you're humble but still honest about your skills, then you're going to be fine there too. But being prideful can definitely come back and bite you in the tail. So, like if you're going to choose one, let's go with the one that's not going to come around. And this is also something that I think part of it is because I have a tendency, and I like to think I have it fairly well under control, but I tend toward arrogance sometimes. And because I have that tendency, I suspect it's because I have that tendency. People with big egos drive me nuts. I'm like, calm down. You're not as important as you think you are. But on the other hand, and you mentioned this, people who actually know a lot are very much aware of how much they don't know. And like I'll use a weightlifting example. Like when I first started and when a lot of people first start, they'll get puffed up egos. They'll think they're hot stuff because I started lifting and maybe you're getting some good progress. But once you get into it, you realize you're nothing. Because you start seeing stuff and you're like, wow, there are people out there who are just monsters. And there's some humility that comes with that. So, and that happens with expertise too, right? Like the further you get in any given field of study, the more you understand how much you don't know, because you approach all these doors that you can't understand everything that's beyond them.
So you're telling me you can't out deadlift Eddie Hall?
I cannot, no, unless he is severely injured. And even then,
Does he currently still have the world record for deadlift?
I do not know, because he's been like retired for a little bit now, I think.
Okay.
For anyone who doesn't know, Eddie Hall is one of those monsters. Like his like how he brands his stuff is he's Eddie the Beast Hall, and he is a beast.
He's earned that name.
Yeah. Really strong dude. Really funny dude too. If you ever see his videos, he's pretty funny. He's a funny guy.
It helps when you're British.
It does. You know what? Anything that involves speaking, it helps to be British, I think.
That's probably true.
When it comes to seasoning food, it's a disadvantage though.
Yeah. Dental health.
Yes. Are we ready to move on? Verse 3?
Sure.
Verse 3 says the integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them.
I think we're good.
I love the word integrity. It's a good word. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, and this is verse 4, but righteousness delivers from death. Jesus talks a lot about this. This is, you have the parable of the man who he had all this wealth and he's like, oh, I'm going to build a bigger barns to store all this wealth. And then the response is, tonight your life is going to be demanded from you. And then what? Like, what good were your barns then? And there are a couple of figures that come across this in the Old Testament too, where it's like, what good is all of your wealth going to do you when you're dying? Solomon talks about this in Ecclesiastes. It's like someone else is going to inherit it, and I guarantee they're going to waste it, and all your work was for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me know if this is too aggressive a take, but I don't know how I want to phrase this. Prioritize church over work. And I mean that in the way of like, if you're a workaholic and you're like, I got to get more done, so I'm going to skip church and do more work. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath. But like, if you're at the bottom of the totem pole of your job and you're going to get fired if you don't show up for your shift on Sunday, I get it. I think that's a different thing. I wouldn't say that's an idolization of riches.
Yeah. Or if you're struggling to make ends meet, this is the job you have and you need to be there.
Yes. But if you're a small business owner and you're like, maybe you're closed on Sunday, but you go into the office while it's just you to get some extra work done, maybe then it's like priority check. Get a priority check. Make sure it's in the right spot.
Yeah. I mean, God should always be priority one. Family should always be priority two. Work should be priority, like maybe 4, probably after friends.
Yeah.
Um,
At least yes.
maybe 5 if you include other like vocational responsibilities in there.
Yeah. Well, that is a vocational responsibility as well.
Yeah. I mean, part of your responsibility to your family is making sure that you can feed them.
Yes. So it gets tied
So,
there.
yeah, and it also part of our responsibility to God is to care for those that serve him for us on our behalf.
Was that a
So those who
roundabout way
do,
of saying church workers?
yes.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying you have to go to work so you have money to tithe with? Oh, I don't necessarily disagree, but that is a piece of logic I haven't heard before. Oh, I'm now remembering you actually weren't there when we did our episode on money with John Niederbrock and John Carolus.
I was not, you're right.
That was a good episode. For if you're listening to this and you haven't heard that episode yet, ladies and gentlemen, that was a good episode with two Johns, both of
That's
which
too,
are wiser than your regular hosts. So
yeah. I also spent this morning with 2 Johns. Um,
different Johns though.
yeah,
Very popular.
very, very different Johns. Um, which reminds me, if you're considering naming your kid John, consider Johann. It is both the Spanish and German equivalent of John, and is far more like rare in the States. So your kid will be a little bit more distinct. Unless you live in the South, in which case maybe Johann's a little bit more common. Like not necessarily the deep South, like the southern United States where Hispanic populations are higher.
Maybe I've never met a Johann.
Johan.
Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of this, but sometimes there are even two N's if it's German. I've never met a Johann,
All right.
and there are there's a lot of Hispanic culture, a lot of Hispanic people down here. So I didn't know that. I didn't know it was a Spanish name as well. You said that, and I was like, just go full German Lutheran, I guess. Is that what we're?
No, there was a famous Minnesota Twins pitcher from Venezuela named Johan Santana.
Oh, there it is. It's almost hockey season. Enough with the baseball nonsense.
Hey, my Twins are still playing. Um,
Didn't care when they started playing. Don't care now. Shall we move on to verse 5 before I make anyone else more upset with my disdain for baseball? Not disdain.
I'm just trying to make sure that when this
Apathy.
episode comes out Tuesday, that they will still be playing, and they are.
You hope.
The earliest they can get eliminated is Tuesday night. So
So if you listen to it when it comes out, we're still safe with our accuracy.
yeah.
Um,
So
verse
before you drop that comment in the comment section, I've accounted for this.
kind of.
Sure.
Verse 5 says, the righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness.
I'm trying to decide if there's something intriguing there.
I mean, there's some good potential for sermon imagery. I don't know how I feel about preaching from Proverbs like this, though, because I don't love preaching on a single verse, and I almost feel like I would have to.
Yeah, I think with this kind of stuff, like as you're diving into this, so this is stepping out of the pulpit and stepping into the like devotional realm. as you're looking at this, a good way to approach it might be like you look at this, you look at situations in your own life, maybe you look at other narratives from scripture, um, or other things that you know of from other people's lives, and you can kind of um, like see how this plays out. So, for example, like the righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight. Somebody who has their head on straight, who has an understanding of what God's calling them to, they're probably going to run into issues with, I don't know, ethical things less. Um, and I think of several people I know, friends of mine that I know, who I would consider like not necessarily more faithful, but like they just have a really good head for where God is calling them. They struggle a lot less with where they know they need to be headed, where they feel like they should be at any given time. Like their life seems simpler. Does that check with what you've seen?
Yeah, I think that's experientially true.
But then on the flip side of that, like somebody who's struggling, they just keep tripping over their own feet.
Yeah.
Um,
And I chalk in some instances, I almost I chalk that up to the Holy Spirit. And if you keep stumbling over something, that might be the Holy Spirit trying to like let you know this isn't the direction. Like when people ask me, oh, I'm trying to make a decision about my future. Like if someone comes up to me and says, I'm thinking about the seminary or this other option, a lot of times what I'll tell them is make your decision and then sit with it. Because if it's the wrong one, the Holy Spirit's not going to leave you alone. And I think it's the same thing more generally, where if you're doing things you shouldn't, like God is going to put those things in front of you to encourage you to change direction.
yeah, yeah,
Again, that's experientially been true for me. I can't necessarily tell you that's exactly how it always works, but
yeah. And I think kind of the flip side of that can also be true. Just because things are going well doesn't mean that there aren't problems. It might just mean that, like, yeah, this is a weird image, but like, I don't know, say you set your hand on a steaming hot stove and you burn yourself significantly. But like you put your hand on palm down, and you look at the back of your hand, you're not going to actually see any of the issues. It's not till you turn your hand around, oh, there's all the raw flesh underneath that I've just scalded off. Um, like
Ben
we
just
can,
wanted an excuse to say the word flesh.
I can just, flesh. But the point being, like, you can have times where things are going seemingly well, and we can just, it's because we're blind to things, not necessarily because we're actually going where God wants us to. Um, but I think as others look at your life, and this is, I know we've talked about the importance of having wise friends and mentors and shepherds in our lives on other episodes of the podcast. This is where those people can help, kind of give you some discernment on, are things going well because God's leading you here, or are things going well because um, you've got 5 tons of garbage in your closet and you just decide not to open the door?
Yeah. And I mean, Proverbs continues to develop this theme, right? If we step forward, it says, the righteousness of the upright delivers them, the treacherous are taken captive in their lust. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish. The expectation of wealth perishes too. The righteous is delivered from trouble. The wicked walks into it instead. And that's we started with 5, and that goes all the way to 8, and it's all this theme of doing the right things. You're going to keep going where you need to be. So, ready to move on to 9. So, verse 9 says, "With his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge, the righteous are delivered." I'd be interested to hear how you might interpret that, Ben Hameen.
I mean, I think this kind of goes to our selfish interests and tendencies. I mean, think Eighth Commandment, and those of you who know your small catechism, we are called to put the best construction on everything, right? Got mine right here.
I have mine also right
By
here.
the way, great $20 investment.
Oh, the app is free.
Does it have the full
explanation? If you want the 2017 editions, though, that costs extra.
Okay. I think the 2017 is worth the $20.
Oh, in the app it's only 7, but
okay.
Then you don't have a nice looking book.
Yeah. I mean,
I use it because we read it after dinner with Zeke. And the app is easier to deal with than a book is.
That's fair. I mean, I think regardless, the investment into having a resource to kind of help with that is great. But back to that Eighth Commandment, Luther talks about how our call to not bear false testimony not only includes not lying about our neighbors, but also supporting them, speaking kindly of them, and putting the best construction on everything about them, so that we are not the ones tearing them down. Like, if someone does a terrible job with something, you can say, I did not have a good experience with this person. But that doesn't mean that experience is going to be universal. You never know what kind of week someone was going through, yada, 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 yada. And our immediate desire as sinful human beings is usually, in my experience, self-centered. So, like, if you're, I don't know, if you hire an electrician to do something on your house and it fails and scorches your wall, and you need to call someone out not only to then replace the wiring but also the wall, saying I did not have a good experience with them, but I don't know if it was just an off day or whatever, like, that's one thing. Questioning their entire life and work ethic and everything else along with that is not appropriate. Yeah. Because like this proverb says, you can destroy somebody with just your mouth. And when we do that to our neighbors, I mean, we are acting godlessly.
Yeah. And I think the flip side is it's like a reassurance of, like, the truth will bear out. Like, the righteous is delivered by knowledge, that kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, I don't know if this is as experientially true. I think in the long term it is, but sometimes it's like I've done ministry with high school kids, none of the ones at this current congregation, but like some rumors got started about them at school and they were completely untrue, but they never really, until they moved on to college, they never really got completely out from under the shadow of that slander. So that sometimes I think is tough, and I think you have to look at the big picture, because a lot of times it's something we want deliverance soon, we want it in the immediate, and I think this is a bigger picture deliverance.
Yeah, this seems, I'm going to use a big churchy word here, so Josh, you're going to have to define this for the people. This seems kind of eschatological to me.
Eschatology is the study of the end of the world, etc. The end times, the end.
Thanks, Josh. back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Thanks.
To me, this is like that knowledge. You're right. It's easy, or not easy, but it's doable in our world for like agenda to trump reality, such that somebody may never really be vindicated for something that just is untrue about them. But we also know that there's a final judgment, and that one's going to be way more important than the ones we face in the here and now. And so our knowledge of what we've done right or what we've done wrong, our understanding of what it means to follow God, and our understanding of our own actions, like that knowledge and the knowledge of God's mercy for us in that judgment will trump any sort of discomfort to full-on persecution that we face for doing what we're called to do here and now. And so that's why I say it's eschatological or end timesy. That's the Ben translation of that.
Yeah, that's the Message version.
Huh?
That's the Message translation.
Yeah, something like that. Is because that vindication, that righteousness, that deliverance may not come until the ends.
Yeah. Moving forward to the next verse, the next two verses I think fit pretty well together. It says, "When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness." And then stepping forward, by the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, and by the mouth of the wicked, it's overthrown. And this kind of, I mean, I think again, this is experientially true for me. Like when good people do, we like to see good people do well.
Mhm.
And a really easy example of that is we see some athletes and hear about some of the things they do in their personal lives, and they're just good people, and we want to see them do well. We want to see them succeed. We want to see them throwing and catching touchdowns. We want to see them get that contract extension, whatever. I'm not speaking to whether or not they're actually good people, but in our perception, if we look at them and we say that seems like a really good person, we want to see them do well. But on the flip side, there's some people in the public eye that you're like, that person is a scumbag, and you want to see them fail. So I think we kind of can identify with that, and then the flip side of that makes sense, right? If you have a lot of upright people in the city, things are going to work out better. But if everybody in the city is corrupt and wicked and it goes poorly. And I think this is in balance. I don't think I'm crossing the line because it's so widely known. The city of Chicago is notorious for its corruption. And if you go to that city, huge parts of that city are in disrepair. They're disgusting. It's like nothing is getting taken care of. It's for large parts of that city, it seems to me that it's not a great place to live. And that kind of tracks because it has become renowned as this place for corruption, for wickedness. I don't really have an example of an upstand, like I don't have the counter example because I don't know of any cities that I would say this city is renowned for just having great ethical people in it. I mean, I think the closest you might get is you could say, I'll use Nashville as an example because I lived there for a few years. By and large, because their whole shtick is like country music and a family friendly kind of thing. And because that's been their draw, like if you go around the city, it's very clean. Things are very well maintained. There aren't a whole lot of places where you would say, I don't want to be there after dark. There might be a couple blocks of that. Um, but this city that is focused more on being upright, it's, I mean, it, you can tell, like it makes a discernible difference in the quality of the city, I guess. um yeah.
Yeah. And I think this also is like kind of tangentially a way to look at leadership on a civic level. Like, if there are people in your local area that are leaders, whether they're government or,
Institutional leaders,
yeah, and they're
prominent
scumbags,
members of the community,
huh?
prominent members of the community.
Yeah, and they're scumbags. Um, watch the reaction to them no longer being positions of power. The city might emit shouts of gladness at seeing them fall. But like when a time honored and well meaning and servant hearted leader of a community steps down from whatever position they were in, there's usually a genuine sense of sadness. Um, there's a sense of thankfulness. There's a sense of comfort from that community for that person, because of what they've done.
Yeah.
So just, I guess, like, kind of be cognizant of that as you raise people up into positions of leadership. They might be an efficient leader, but that doesn't necessarily make them a good one.
Yeah.
You want,
Timothy has a lot. First and Second Timothy have a lot to say about that,
yeah,
especially within the church.
yeah, you want to raise people up that as they're stepping down, uh,
Well, and you want to keep in mind that if, especially since we elect people by popular vote largely in this country, what you are saying is for whatever vice that an elected leader has, that an election is a statement, maybe not of approval, but at least of tolerance and acceptance for what it, like if someone is notorious for cheating at different things and they get elected, a message that the community has said is we're okay with cheating if X, Y, and Z is fulfilled. So, like if someone were to elect Bill Belichick to public office, you're essentially saying that you are okay having a cheater in charge.
you are okay with deflated balls.
Yikes. Moving on, because we should probably try and get through a couple before the episode's over.
I think we can just roll straight into takeaways, and we can
I'm good with that.
Make this a 3-parter. Because I have a takeaway, and it's kind of based on those last two. And the rest of this and a lot of our Proverbs conversations fold into this. As you are stepping away from things in life, how do you want people to remember you? Do you want them to say, well done, good and faithful servant, or do you want them to say good riddance? And I think some of what we talk about when we talk about legacy is overblown, but at the same time, it's also the way that you are witnessing to your faith and to your God. So you should also be cognizant of your legacy, of the way that people are viewing you. Not to let it define you, but to know whether or not they at least found you consistent with the things that you believe.
Yeah. My takeaway, I want to draw attention back to that second verse: when pride comes, then comes disgrace. And my takeaway is this: sit down, be humble.
Thanks,
That's
Kendrick.
good old Kendrick. What a guy. Check us out on well, no, just subscribe to the podcast. You don't have to check us out on Facebook. It's there if you want to reach out, if you want to let us know if you want to let us know that you appreciate an episode, that's cool. But also, if you have a topic you want us to cover, if you want a guest that you want us to try and get on, if you want to come on as a guest, you can reach out to us personally. Facebook page is there if you don't have our personal contact info. And we would appreciate if you subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. And for those that have ratings, we appreciate that too. I'm sure that helps get this in front of people. We're not opposed to more and more people listening to this. And buy our shirt, I guess. We do have that, edgewaterlutheran.org/gear. It's on there. You can buy it. It has our faces on it. And I think that's all I got. With that, go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.